Welcome to the Biz Bash podcast, where we make biz strategy a piece of cake. I'm Elisabeth.
And I'm Cami, but you might know us better as Eliza and Calligraphy and Cami Monet. We want to help you, our fellow stationers, artists, and calligraphers, confidently build a profitable and personality-driven creative biz.
We're here to share our honest-to-goodness advice and actionable strategies for ambitious artists.
So put on your party hat, quit being a procrastinator gator, and let's get this party started.
Hey guys, we're back for our official episode 1 of the Biz Bash podcast, where we will be talking about how to go full-time with your biz and how Cami and I went full-time with our businesses.
Yes. We are so excited to talk about this. I feel like we get questions about how do you go full-time all the time. So this is going to be a really fun episode, and we're both going to share our stories on how we ended up where we are, and it all is just gonna have lots of awesome advice for you guys. So
the short version of this is how to go full time is you just do it and have no idea what you're doing. But
basically, you just do it. Okay, see you next week. Bye.
See you next week. That's the end. No, just kidding. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you take the jump and you like do it. But
it's
we have very different stories,
I was just about to say that we have very different stories of how we ended up being full-time. So there really is no right or wrong way or any way you can really, really plan for it without just making the leap. So Elisabeth, do you want to talk about how you went full-time? Because you actually got to plan yours and I didn't. So go.
Sure. I'll start off by talking about mine. I actually had known like most of my life that I wanted to have my own business at some point. So I feel like everything was kind of like building up to this like moment of what will it be and like when will this actually happen? But I started calligraphy back when I was in college. And then when I got married and moved across the country to Georgia, I got something full time because there was like no way at that point that I was going to be working for myself and making a living working for myself. I mean, I had made like one invitation suite. It was for my wedding. I had made like some wood signs for my wedding. Like
I loved your wedding invitation that you made for yourself. It was so cute.
I still need to share that. I don't think I've even like shared it on social. It's pretty funny, guys. I mean, it's like, it's really endearing.
I mean, you've
and like
come
cute.
A long way, but it's still really cool that you did that for yourself. So.
Yeah, it is. It is like really cool. So I worked full time in a job in Georgia that I hated for a year, basically. I was like plotting my escape the entire time I was there. I was just talking to actually one of my friends last night who still works there. And that's a whole nother story, but it sounds like things haven't gotten much better. Anyways, that being said, I was just doing a lot of things on the side. So I was doing a lot of wood signs. I was doing like house portraits at that point. I was doing all kinds of stuff that I don't even offer anymore that I was trying to just like do to, you know, like get my foot in the door.
Right.
And wood signs were like the big things that actually, the big things that connected me to like the wedding industry and other wedding vendors. And I was going to Rising Tide meetings and trying to get connected that way. So I was so unhappy that I basically started talking to my husband, Will, about like, what are the next steps for me if I'm going to be going full time and like leaving behind the life of being like in an office, you know, working for someone else. Like, what does it like working for myself? You really don't know until you do it. That's the fun part and the scary part. So I want to say that I just got to a point where I knew I couldn't grow my business anymore if I wasn't dedicating 100% of my time to it, my working time to it, because I was like staying up way too late in the evening. It's like the typical like side hustle of, you know, you feel like you're working yourself to the bone.
Yeah,
like,
you really have no actual personal time left. You're putting in your hours at your 9 to 5 and then coming home and working your butt off on your side hustle. And you're like, how am I going to sustain this?
And that was like the story of my life. And because of that, and this is something I didn't even think about before, I wasn't spending a lot of time really building any sort of community in Georgia. Like it was just Will and I. It was the two of us. We like didn't really have friends. Like we joked all the time we didn't have friends because we actually didn't have
what
friends.
a bunch of losers. I'm just kidding.
It's so hard to make friends like as an adult, and especially like as an adult like couple.
It is, yeah. Especially when you're a young couple, because everyone else is going out and hanging out, and you're like, well, we're married, and I don't know. Anyway, side tangent. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, even on that point, still, it's like a bunch of people are newly married, but then a lot of people have kids, and so there's not really that point of like being married and no kids. It's like hard to find like friends in the same stage of life.
Totally.
So he and I finally sat down one day and we're like, what does this look like if I go full time? We kind of decided, okay, well, we need to at least have like 6 months of savings in place to fall back on if I like don't make a single penny when I go full time, right? So I was like, okay, I'm like ready to do this. And really like the big kick in the pants was that I just like hated my day job so much. I hated it so much. And I was just like a bad employee in general. It's not that I didn't do what I was told, but I'm very self-motivated and I'm very stubborn. And if somebody asks me to do something, I better have a good reason why I need to do it. Like if you try to give me busy work, like that's not going to go over very well.
That is not happening.
That is not happening. So I finally put my like 2 weeks in, I guess at the very beginning of September, because my first day being full time was September 16th, 2016. And yeah, then you go from there and have like no idea what you're doing. Yeah, here we are through all the ups and downs. But that's my story of like going full time in that process for me. And so I'll let you talk about yours, and then we'll kind of jump in to other things of, you know, how do we know we're ready?
Some practical steps on how to actually take the leap.
Exactly.
I love that you actually had time to plan though, and that your hatred of your day job fueled everything, which is absolutely hilarious to me because I know firsthand how stubborn you can be. I can just whatever, I'm leaving this place soon enough. Like just plotting your whole exit. But anyway, so my story of going full time is totally different. I did not want to go full time or be a full time artist at all. I actually loved my day job. So I worked as a travel writer for a travel magazine, a couple of travel magazines actually, and I just absolutely loved my job. Like it was the dream. I got to travel for free, got to visit a lot of awesome places. So I loved it. But I took a calligraphy class, let's see, I guess the beginning of 2016. And I'd always been an artist because my dad is a watercolor artist. So I've been painting my whole life, but I hadn't painted in about, 10 years. So taking that calligraphy class, my mother-in-law got it for me. Just like refueled everything. Like it just reignited this spark. Like, oh, this is really fun. I should start painting again. And so in January, I challenged myself to practice my lettering every day. So I would do like A on January 1st, B on January 2nd. And then I took that a step further and decided to paint animals that went along with each letter. So like the A was an antelope and the B was a bear. And I went through the whole animal alphabet. So I would do letters and paint an animal every day. And I like turned into this whole thing. So I started sharing that on Instagram. And people were like, oh, I had no idea you could paint. And I was like, dude, I've been painting since I was like 3. Okay, like, you don't
you
even
took
know.
a little bit of a hiatus there. So I guess it's not too surprising. People
I know. I would do like one painting every year and release it in my dad's gallery. But I never talked about it. Like it was just something, I don't know. I never thought it was anything cool. But so that just kind of ignited things and people started asking for prints. So I was like, oh yeah, I can do that because I already had the knowledge from, getting prints made with my dad's gallery. So started selling prints of the animal ABCs. And I was like, I should just start this as a little side hustle. It'd be fun to make some extra money for the weekends, whatnot. So literally just started painting, taking on random jobs from people. I mean, so random. Like I did wooden signs, chalkboards, you name it, like I would do it for you. And I was like, this is so fun, making extra money. And of course I'd charge like nothing. I had no idea how pricing works. So as the business started to grow, I was like, one day it would be cool to go full-time with this, but I would never actually do that because I don't want to be a full-time artist. I love being in the corporate world and feeling fancy about like traveling for free and whatnot. So I didn't have all that desire.
Perks.
Right. So I was like, this is perfect. But things at the magazine weren't going so hot. Not the magazine itself, but just the whole corporation, the whole company just wasn't managed very well. So let's see. In September, they actually let go the entire staff of the travel magazine, which was the saddest day of all time. But we kind of all knew it was coming. So we weren't super surprised. And everyone was let go that day, except for me. They said I had to stay there for 2 more weeks until September 16th, which had been my final day. So I had 2 weeks that they still wanted me to be there after hearing that I was fired.
What the heck? Wait.
I know.
I don't think I ever heard this part of the story.
Did you not know this? Yeah, everyone else left. And then I was the only one left in the office for 2 weeks, like by myself.
Wait, why?
I don't know. I was the digital editor, so I think they wanted me to like wrap up the newsletters and stuff on the website. So, obviously I did none of that. I just was like, all right, time to make a plan. And I got really serious about like planning out my my business, and I was like, these 2 weeks were perfect for me to just sit at a computer with nothing else around me and already being fired. So like definitely a kick in the pants moment. Like I will not have a job on September 16th. I better start like really looking at this strategically. So yeah, September 16th, I went full time, not by choice, but it all worked out. And I literally told my husband, I was like, give me 3 months. I want to just test this out and see if I can do it. Because I like to challenge myself. So it was kind of I'm going to test it out. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to start applying for magazine journalism jobs, the things I knew. But I was like, I'm going to just give it a go and see how it goes. And I had already booked a wedding client for that month. And luckily, that wedding client kept adding on more and more things. Like this was one of my biggest clients. And I ended up matching my full-time income, my job income within the first month of going full-time. And I was able to keep up that momentum simply because I'm also stubborn and would like literally seek out people and be like, hey, I can do this for you. I can do this. So yeah, just like sheer will put me through that. But yeah, so here we are. And I'm so glad I got that kick in the pants because I really would not have done this without being fired. I really wouldn't have, but I would not change the decision at all. I love where I am now. So I always say that job was my dream job, but this feels more like a calling. And I know that's cheesy, but it's so true, you guys.
Oh, but that like makes me emotional to hear you say that. It's so sweet. And
I know.
I'm like laughing even more now, like knowing our story of going full-time the same day and that you were the only person in the office for 2 weeks because, okay, like our whole friendship is like founded up us going full-time the same day. Think about like fate, like if you had been fired the same day as everyone else. This like blows my mind.
No, you're so right. I've never even thought about it like that. Like technically I was fired 2 weeks before that, but was actually let go. Like, no, don't come back ever again. We don't want to see you. Turn in your key card and leave September 16th, which is so funny. Do you remember what it was like when you woke up and you didn't go to an office and you're just like, okay, this is my first day being my own boss. And you're like, I'm going to watch movies all day.
Oh my gosh. My first day of full time. Well, I actually got like really blessed because I had a local friend, Rosalind, who actually did like a photo shoot with me that day. I was taking some
that
photos
is such a glamorous way to start.
Well, yeah, it was partly for her business. We like I modeled some like t-shirts for her clothing line. And then she took a couple headshots of me in my office. So that was like a great way to start off. But I don't think that was like till the afternoon of that day because I remember sitting at my desk in the morning and basically the entire first week sitting at my desk being like, I don't even know like where to start or like what do I do from here? Like there's no one telling me what to do. Like I have to like create the to-do list myself. Like what is this? Like I felt so confused.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I had that client I was working for, so at least I had something to get started on. And I honestly, when they did fire me, my first thought was, "Oh, thank God, now I have time to finish all those escort cards." That was literally my first thought. I'm not
No.
even kidding. Because I was going home on my lunch break and working on stuff, and I'd be gone for like 2 hours, like taking 2 hour lunch breaks, which is totally not cool. So
No
I was just
way.
not being a good employee at all.
So
But
you were a bad employee too at the end
I
of
was
it.
being a bad employee too, but also like things around the office were getting weird. Like we knew the magazine was going to close, you know? So it just was a weird vibe. Like it went from being like super hyped to everyone just being like, when is it going to happen kind of thing. So,
Yeah, that's
so
kind of
yeah.
terrible.
So there was a point where I was like, I can't put any more time towards this unless I, don't have a full-time job anymore. But I was like, but I'm not leaving this place. I get to travel for free and I love it. So, I loved it for other reasons than just that. I loved who I worked with and stuff. But so I don't sound like a total moocher, but
right. Because for any of you guys listening, who are still like in a day job working in an office setting, you guys still have that like built-in community. You have people you get to see every day. It changes a lot when you go full-time and you're at home alone, because you're like literally at home alone. And that's something you don't even think about, is like one of the, things that comes with being full-time, like it being your own boss. But that's something we'll probably have like a whole episode dedicated to at some point, to be honest.
Yeah,
there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, finding a community of people who are also doing the same things and you can just kind of pick their brain and who understand the same struggles you're going through is you hear this from everyone, but it really is key to surviving in this industry. You have to have people who you can talk to and call for help and bounce feedback off of. If you're just there by yourself living in a bubble, it's just you're not gonna go as far in your business because you're not gonna have any feedback,
Totally. Yeah, I totally get that. Let's go ahead and talk about real quick for both of us, like what are things that we had set up and in place before we went full time? So to give other people an idea of like, if they want to go full time, what should they at least have like nailed down and kind of ready to go before they get to that point?
Yeah, I think number one for me, the biggest thing that was the most helpful in having nailed down was having some kind of audience that I already had built up. So people who were already looking to buy my stuff or knew who I was. Like I was literally talking about what I was doing all the time. And I really think that contributed to me being able to be successful in my first few months, because I wasn't starting from the ground up with being like, hey, I'm a business owner now. Here's my stuff. I had already been doing that for the past 8 months. Mm-hmm. So people were familiar with it. So it didn't seem like jarring and weird that I was coming out of the blue trying to sell them something, because I had already been doing that.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So having an audience in place, like whether you're building it up through your Facebook, your Instagram, email list, just talking about it to people at your church and your community groups, whatever, like talking about it all the time is crucial.
Yeah. Oh, and I definitely didn't have a mailing list before I went full time though. So for those of you that heard that and just freaked out, don't worry.
Yeah. Sorry guys. I didn't mean to freak you out. But definitely just go ahead and build that audience. You can do that as simple. It could be your mom and your neighbors, but you need to have people who know what you're doing and are able to like want to actually purchase something from you, whether it's your calligraphy services or your product or whatnot.
That's what I was super thankful about with even though in my office I didn't like my job, there were still a lot of people that I liked, and I was talking to them all the time about what I was doing. They were very like aware of what I was doing. So I had that audience. I was working on building my Instagram audience like crazy. That was before all the algorithms changed. We really got lucky starting our Instagram accounts before all that happened.
Can be just as simple as the people in your circle, because if someone comes to you and like, oh, I didn't know you were an artist, then you're doing something wrong, you guys. Like,
right.
You really do talk about it a lot to build that audience. So it doesn't have to be like building up huge numbers, just like letting people know what you're doing.
Totally. The other thing that comes with that too is having a website. This is something Cami and I would both recommend having before you go full time. That shouldn't be something where you go full time and you start building a website. A website is something that can like easily be done in the evenings when you come home from work, on the weekends when you have a little bit of extra time to do something. all these options we have now, like Squarespace, Shopify, Show It, Wix, make it really accessible and easy, and for anybody, I guess, to build a website.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that later on down the road. And it just adds a level of professionalism to your brand. But that's a whole nother side tangent. But yeah, you want to have that hub where you can direct people immediately to your site where they can order things from you, get in touch with you. Yeah, you got to have a website. An Instagram, a Facebook it's just not going to do it. So definitely have that.
At some point, I'd love to do like a time warp. I think there's a website that lets you see websites from like 2 years ago. You can like type in a domain and see what it looked like. And I would love to show you guys like what Cami and I's used to look like at some point. Because
so cool.
Yeah, when you first, I'll have to ask my brother. He knows about that kind of stuff. But when we first started out, my website was like 3 pages. Okay. It was like a homepage with some photos of my work, a contact page, and an about page. That was like all it was. It was so simple, but it was there. Like I had my corner of the internet. Like what Cami and I's websites are now are so different from what they were at the beginning. So don't be like looking at someone else and get intimidated and let that stop you. Like you just gotta start really simple, and you just like have to start. That's it.
I don't even care if your website is one of those lead page things and it just says like email me with your email. Like literally that is better than having nothing at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, gotta have that. And then I was gonna say finances, having a bookkeeping system will change your life if you're about to go full time.
It will.
Have that in place before you even think about owning a business. Like I cannot stress that enough.
And these are just as simple as either GoDaddy. That's what you use, right, Cami?
Yeah, I love GoDaddy. It's so idiot proof, you guys. Like anyone can use it. It's so
and
easy.
Then I use QuickBooks Self-Employed. This is another thing that we really love is that Cami and I have very different ways of doing things, but have still found like success in our own ways as well, which just proves there's really no way of doing anything. There's like infinite ways of doing things. Yeah. And having a separate bank account. This can confuse people because a lot of times they think they're like, oh, bank account, but I have to be like super official. It has to be under my business name. It has to have this and that, yada, yada, yada. But really at the end of the day, you just need to open like a separate personal banking account, because when you first start off,
it's still personal. Is yours a personal bank account, or is yours a business one at this point?
Mine still is, just because I'm still a sole proprietor. Once I get that switched to like an LLC, I think that's when I would make it a business account, I would imagine. As you could tell, Cami and I are still figuring a lot of things out.
Yeah, we'll let you know when we find out.
Yeah, but you got to get yourself like financially like separated, I guess. There's like a word for that.
I mean, financially separated sounds good to me. So
sure. I was going to throw in the word solvent, but I was like, I don't know if that's the right use of the word in this instance. But you have to keep the finances separate. You have to know like what expenses are for your business, what income is for your business. If you're doing everything out of one personal bank account and you're going like grocery shopping one day and you bought like a new brush at Walgreens, I don't know why I thought of that.
That was the most random example. You know, when you're brush shopping at Walgreens and you accidentally use your business card, you don't want to do that.
All of this goes to say, just get a separate bank account that you can put all your business stuff through. And then you just sync that with whatever bookkeeping system that you choose, whether that's QuickBooks Self-Employed, GoDaddy, Wave. There's so many different ones. And then you have it all right there. It's very easy to see it.
Yeah. No, I love that. You definitely got to have that. And then another thing that I had going full time that I think was really helpful, I call it an income anchor. So basically this is like a product or service that just always is constantly selling. You don't have to worry about, don't have to market it. It's just always selling for you. So it's something that even if there's a slow period, this one is probably still going to make money for you. And for me, this was escort cards on Etsy, which I'm never doing ever again, by the way. But
that's hilarious. So I don't think I knew that either. I had no idea.
Yeah, I was selling those. They were $3 each, and they were like hand torn watercolor, and I would do like a watercolor wash on them, and then just the names and calligraphy. But I would sell those all the time. So I would just spend my time doing these escort cards, and, felt like you're making bank because they're $3 each or whatever. I don't know. But So that was something that I constantly had coming for me through any kind of finances coming in, even when I was like not necessarily having a big client or selling any prints or whatnot. Those sold really, really well for me. So I would just say try to find something like, Elisabeth, you had your wooden signs that were doing really well for you. Just like one thing that is kind of your bread and butter offering that you can kind of keep as just your foundation for making money along the way. And of course, that'll expand as you grow your business. But starting out, that was really helpful.
Yeah,
for me.
Absolutely. Right. I wouldn't have even thought about like my wood signs being an income anchor, but you're totally right. Like that's what they were at the beginning. I was doing so many of those. I've done like hundreds of those, which I've like really like phased that out of my business so much now. But at the beginning, it was like absolutely essential for me to like be making a living.
And those things, like, honestly, the money I made from those escort cards would go right back into my business on how I was going to figure out how to grow it. But it also was just, it's a lot better than having $0 coming in.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, that's a good segue into the fact, too, that I actually didn't even like pay myself anything when I was doing it as a side hustle. And I don't know how it looked like for you, but every dollar I made when I was still like full time at my day job went right back into my business.
Because you don't have the pressure of trying to have to pay yourself at all. You can literally just use it to fuel the business at that point, which is so nice. Don't like take for granted the fact that you do have a full-time job, because honestly, that steady paycheck can be such a blessing to your creativity and like take the stress and pressure off your business so much.
Oh my gosh.
Like when it comes down to like, okay, I have to make this or we're not going to pay the bills this month, then it gets like really, really, really scary.
Actually, today's my payday. I totally forgot.
Oh, yay.
It's on my calendar though. So
yay for payday.
All right. So Cami, when did you get all of your like business registration and sales tax stuff in place? Was that like as soon as you went full time, and how did that look for you?
I actually had mine in place. So I really think my business kind of started, I'm doing air quotes. I know you can't see it, but I'm doing air quotes, like January 2016. So I probably got all my stuff registered. I think it was March or May. I can't remember. I know it was an M month. So it was either March or May of 2016 that I did the registration and did all that because I wanted to be set up correctly. So I did have that in place before I went full time, but I wish I had done that like right at the beginning when I even had an inkling that I wanted to start a business. But I mean, you just don't know what you don't know at that point.
Right.
So, yeah, mine was a few months before. So if you haven't started your business or you are thinking about going full time, you haven't done that, do it now.
Yeah, that's true. Because this is scary to say, but I'm on the opposite side of that spectrum too, where I did all my registration stuff like basically the day I went full time.
Okay. Yeah.
Because at that point, I wasn't making...
Well, I think that's totally fine too. I think that's kind of expected. Yeah. But always better to be prepared if you know at this point. So
right, if you know that you're going to go full time. And the interesting thing about it is that this all gets very confusing. And Cami and I aren't going to give you guys too much information about this in lieu of like...
It's very specific based on your location. Right. So we will talk about that on another episode.
But we're both sole proprietors, which means everything falls under your like personal finances, even though it's like technically separate. It's also still part of it. It's very confusing. But if you have like an accountant or a finance friend or somebody, I'm sure they'd be able to explain it to you. I learned the differences between sole proprietor and LLC by YouTubing it. So
yeah, Google, YouTube, they're all your friends, especially when you're trying to figure out what the heck to do with your business. And honestly, like when I was registering my business and getting it set up for sales tax and all that jazz, I literally just called the people and I thought it was going to be so scary, but they were so nice and so helpful and
like the
made
people
it way less intimidating.
At the local office, you mean?
Yeah, I don't even know who they are at this point. I called the people, Elisabeth. The people.
Obviously.
The tax people. I don't know. I guess the Florida Department of Revenue sales tax office. That is who I called. And the lady was so nice. She probably deals with idiots like me all the time who are like, I make arts and crafts, so can you help me? So she was super nice.
Those are the real saints and
just
heroes.
Call. Oh, God, they are so much. Because like no one knows about that stuff. Anyway. So yeah, have that set up, you guys. Okay, so we also get this question all the time about when do you know that you're ready to go full time?
Dun,
So
dun,
Elizabeth,
dun. I feel like
since you dun dun dun, when did you actually planned yours? What were some of the things that you would say were like characteristics of when you knew you were like ready to make the leap?
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned earlier that it's like I just knew I could not continue to grow it anymore if I wasn't dedicating my full attention to it. There was just like so much of my attention going like different places during the day. Obviously, when you're like working in an office setting, you're like consumed with that. And I like my office didn't specifically involve travel, but it did a little bit because I was like doing listings for a real estate office. So I was driving all over the place all the time. So it's not like I was sitting at a desk and could make like to-do lists or like figure things out for my business. Like I was very much like on the go, on the move. So it's like, I need this time, like all of this time to be able to like plan, to be able to figure things out. But I mean, part of it was that like, I knew that I was like super self-motivated. So I wasn't like too worried about that, you know? And I also like just had this inkling and just knew that I could like beat what I was making getting paid full time. And so being able to like know that obviously gave me like a leg up, right? Of like, oh, well, if I know like based on these calculations or whatever that I can beat what I'm currently making in my day job, why wouldn't I take the step to go full time?
I mean, that is definitely fuel for the fire right there.
And I hated my job. This just all keeps coming back to that, guys. I like had to get out of there. I had to leave.
Now Elisabeth hated her day job. You know, just so we're clear, she hated it. Yeah, I think that it's kind of a lot of the same for me. I felt like I had like plateaued basically in terms of being able to scale it, even though I didn't want to go full time, but I did have that feeling like I could do this. But I'm like, no, I'm going to ride this out and see where this takes me in terms of my other job. But yeah, I felt like I could not grow it anymore based on time. And I felt like I was getting consistent orders and income in where if I did have that time, that I could easily double, triple, whatever that.
Yes.
So that was a huge thing. And then as I started raising my prices, I felt like I can maybe do this more. I can do this more once I wasn't just pricing as like a hobby business anymore. So I do think though, getting those first few clients with a lower price point was great because it gave me experience, and I was like, I am never doing it for this price ever again, and learned a lot along the way.
Right,
with that.
And that happened while you weren't full time, right? Or like,
right. So it did not matter. I mean, it did matter, but it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things financially
because you weren't full time with your own business, right? You could fall back on a paycheck.
Right. I still had a paycheck, so there was no pressure. It didn't matter if I sold something for $1,500 or $1,500. Like it was really okay. I was still gonna make it. So yeah. And then I think you are ready to go full time if you understand that you are going to have to Google everything yourself. You're going to have to figure it out your own way. And, you know, you got to be prepared that you're not going to have someone to tell you the exact next steps. And you're going to be okay with that. You really have to be okay with carving your own path and figuring out the way you do things and not necessarily try to jerry rig the way the other person is doing something, like figuring it out by looking at their Instagram stories. But like literally paving your own path is huge. So if you have the confidence and the motivation to do that, then I think you're ready to go full time.
Yes. And this is okay. And I just have to do a little tangent of like, this is why I love Biz Birthday Bash and like what we're doing, because guys, we aren't sitting here like holding out our hand and being like, hold it, here's the one way to do everything. We're here to teach you guys like the skills of like, how do you figure it out and how do you make it work for your business? There's no like one roadmap that's perfect for everybody. And I still Google stuff all the freaking time, probably every day.
I know. But I do think when I was doing my side hustle, I was like, well, how do I do this like this person? And like trying to figure that out. And then honestly, when you're full time, you're like, I don't even care. I got to figure it out for myself.
Yeah.
Like, so going and already having that mindset shift now is going to be so beneficial for you later on, because you have to just be so resourceful as a business owner. Like you have to be able to adapt and pivot all the time. There's always things coming at you. So one way might work one day and the next day it totally doesn't work. So just figuring out those steps on your own is crucial.
Right. And even that goes for like materials and things we use on a daily basis. Like when I was doing a lot of wood signs, I would get asked all the time, like what paint pen I was using. And do you know how I found the paint pen I was using? I like, first of all, Googled it. Second of all, I think like chose a random one at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or something. I chose like 5 different ones, and I figured out which one I liked. Yeah, which one I liked, and I did it. And so that's why it makes me laugh. I think people just get like really hung up on like the fact there's like, oh, if that's working for her, or if that's working for him, it'll like work for me too, which is like not the case at all. Because some people hate the pens that I use, or have come back and told me like blah, 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 like this and that about the pen you use. And I'm like, I'm not sorry. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. We all have different tastes. So yeah, that is so true.
Let's talk about the scary things, like some hidden expenses to expect when you go full time.
Yes. These are scary, but we're gonna make them unscary by telling you about them now. So, like, I think one of the biggest ones, which is something I did not personally have to deal with, was health insurance when you go full time. My husband has a full-time job, so obviously I just moved over to his plan. But I know if you're not married, or your husband is also an entrepreneur or whatever, this is something you definitely are going to want to start researching now. And I cannot give any advice to this because I haven't personally experienced it, but health insurance is huge. And I know from a lot of other entrepreneurs that this has been a big struggle for them, and a huge hidden cost that they didn't necessarily expect going into it. So definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, that one's kind of crazy. I mean, so my husband Will's in the process of job searching, and we're both about to cross that threshold where I was once again like very blessed by being young enough to still be on my family's plan. Holla. I'm actually still on their plan, guys. I'll let you figure out how young I am by telling you that. But
I'm the old one. I'm old. I'm going to be 29 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's crazy. Birthday coming up. By the time this episode releases, you will be 29.
By the time this episode releases, I will be 29. So.
But yeah, Will has been researching health insurance stuff because he is going to have something in place like during the time that he's not, working for another company. And not all companies offer health insurance. This is all the things I'm figuring out too. But yeah, that's a big one. Like eventually I will have to figure that out for myself. But then
we can do an episode on that when you figure it out.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't know. More advice to come on that later. But anyway,
adulting
just a little heads
so
up
hard. It's so scary.
Okay, so what were some other hidden expenses that you didn't expect?
When you think about like paying for your website and your client management system, I guess that's something you don't really think about until you go full time and you're like, oh, I guess I do need a way to manage my clients. So both.
Yeah, and like all those little monthly expenses really add up really fast. You're just like, oh, $10 here, $12 here, and then you're like, holy crap, I'm paying $200 a month, and that's just like non-negotiable. You have to have that. So,
and not to mention the transaction fees for every time you get paid by somebody.
Yes, Etsy fees. Etsy has, pretty much every sale on Etsy is about 8% of fees when it all totals up together. So just keeping that in mind. You're still making money, so don't freak out about it. But like, you just have to keep those fees in mind that you are going to be paying for these things, and it's totally fine. But just knowing your numbers for your business overhead before you go full time, so you're not like, oh crap, I have this bill for my MailChimp list or whatever to pay.
Well, I'm really happy that I'm now being a couple years into the point where I'm paying for things on a yearly basis instead of a monthly basis, because you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Like Adobe Creative Cloud, I pay for that on a yearly basis. That's another huge like one, Photoshop. Guys. Like design software is not cheap. It's going to be like $20 or more a month, depending on how much you're using or how many different programs. But
yeah, and that was something I had to I was using the Photoshop at work, and then when I got fired, I obviously had to buy it myself. So I was like, oh,
you were using the one at work? About That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I would just stay late sometimes and work on it, or my lunch break. Like I said, I had I thank God I had those 2 weeks because I had so many design files on my work computer that I had all the time to get them off instead of literally people's computers were just like shut off and they're like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that. Oh gosh.
Man, things that worked out that you didn't even realize.
I know. Dang.
Oh, emails cost money. Or like your email system, it's like $5 a month for my like personal business email.
Oh yeah, and then like getting your personal email, like getting your email like Cami at CamiMonet.com or something that's not a Gmail email that costs money.
And this is
like even your internet, your house, like.
And this isn't necessarily hidden, you guys, but taxes. So.
Oh yeah, that gets everyone so much.
Yeah, we get lots and lots of questions about taxes, but that's all. I mean, there are federal taxes, but a lot of it is state-based. So there's not really a great way to talk about that.
I mean, really just about 30% of what you make is going to go to taxes. I mean, that's pretty much the most general way to phrase it. But yeah, just go ahead and account for 30% of what you make is going to go to taxes. So maybe factor that in when you're doing your pricing. Okay. Is that anything else we want to cover about going full time? I'm sure we'll get more questions on this later. So if we needed to have a follow-up episode, we could totally do that. But
I would say that a lot of these things are things we didn't necessarily realize when we went full time. So it's nice for us to be able to kind of like look back and be like, oh, hindsight is 2020. Here's things we wish we would have had in place better or like understood better, or maybe have like changed and done differently. So there are going to be things that you guys do on your own business journeys that you look back later and wish you had done differently. The nice thing is that we can at least give you like a little bit of like insight into our stories and what we did and, you know, like what to expect, because it gets real when you go full time and be your own boss.
It gets yeah. So I would say just like being able to plan, give yourself to-do list, you know, being very self-motivated. Like we cannot stress this enough to be self-motivated if you're planning on going full-time. Like you can't just think that you're going to sit around and hang out in your pajamas and drink mimosas all day, because that's just not going to happen. So being self-motivated, knowing you're going to get the work done, you know, having those nitty-gritty things in your business already figured out, like the kinks worked out, so you're not trying to add those on and backtrack, adding in your expenses and stuff for the past year that you've been side hustling, because that is going to suck. So just being organized and being resourceful, I think is, you know, pretty much two huge things that are going to make your full-time journey so much easier.
So much easier. So Cami had mentioned earlier that you guys will probably have questions about everything we've been talking about. So this is a perfect segue into a fun thing we are introducing. We will have little mini-sodes called Q and Cake. It'll be our own little question and answer kind of episode, session, mini-sode, whatever you want to call it. But basically, we just need you guys to submit your questions. So it will be www.bizbirthdaybash.com/Q, like the letter Q, the word and the word cake, Q and cake. And that's where we're going to put our little form for you guys to submit questions. And these mini-sodes, I guess they won't be happening like super frequently, but they will be happening.
They will be happening. So you guys bring the questions, we'll bring the cake. It's going to be awesome. So this is basically where you can get a chance to ask us anything, get your FAQs answered. So yeah, like she said, bizbirthdaybash.com/Q and cake. And we'll probably also do something on Instagram, but yeah, that is the number one place to find it. And so what's next?
Leave us a review.
Yes, leave us a review. Hit subscribe if you haven't, because we have lots more awesome episodes coming. And then, of course, you can always find us over on Instagram at bizbirthdaybash too.
We will see you guys next time.
Good luck going full time. You got this.
Bye for now, guys.